This is the Ethanol Report, the industry podcast from the Renewable Fuels Association since 2008. I'm Cindy Zimmerman.
It's hard to believe it, but the end of the year is already in sight, and the ethanol industry has yet to see Congress approve year-round nationwide E15. But there is still a lot to be thankful for this year. I'm speaking with Geoff Cooper, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association. And first of all, Geoff, we are going to talk about all things E15. We haven't spoke for a while. I think the last time was that Farm Progress show. But as far as E15 is concerned, let's just start with California, because that was the big good news for the ethanol industry in the last month or so. Where are we with that? It was like we were going to be able to sell E15 right away as soon as the governor signed it. Are we? Where are we at?
Well, we're very, very close. And you're right. We got great news back in October when Governor Newsom signed AB 30 into law. That bill had unanimously passed the California legislature. And what that bill does is it immediately authorizes E15 as a legal fuel in California. We all know California had been the last remaining state that had not approved E15. So that bill and the governor's signature on it was great news for the industry. We knew there were going to be a few I's to dot and T's to cross before retailers could begin offering the fuel. That is happening. And I would say just about all of those I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed. There's just one or two remaining small little things that we need additional clarity and guidance from CARB on, specifically regarding the compatibility of equipment that is specific or unique to California. It's the Stage 2 vapor recovery equipment that exists at California retail stations. No other state has that equipment still in place, but California does. And so there's been just some technical glitches in getting the clarity and certainty that the marketplace needs from CARB on the suitability of that equipment for E15. But we think we're very close to having that. We expect CARB to come out, in a matter of days or weeks and provide that last piece of clarity that the marketplace is looking for. And there are retailers, our staff is talking to them daily, who are ready to make the move as soon as they get that last bit of information from CARB. So we do think it is highly plausible that before the end of this calendar year, we are going to see at least a handful of stations in the state of California offering E15 to consumers. And that is great news. It's something we've been working on for years and years and years. California is still going to run a parallel rulemaking process, and they say that may take a year and a half or two to officially and formally approve E15. But in the meantime, because of this legislation, we should have a situation where retailers can offer that fuel to drivers who want to buy it. So great news in California. We are making progress. And again, we are very hopeful that, by Christmas time, Californians are going to have a nice Christmas surprise and be able to buy that lower cost, cleaner fuel.
Well, that's something we're thankful for here with Thanksgiving coming up. But what is that market? What is the potential for that market to increase the use of ethanol nationwide? What's the potential for California there?
Yeah, there's huge potential, and that's why we've spent so much time and effort on the state of California. It is the second largest single fuel consuming state in the country, just barely behind Texas. So they use a lot of gasoline in the state of California, even though they've prioritized a transition to electric vehicles. They're still using 13 or 14 billion gallons of gasoline in the state. So today, all of that is E10. So, the state of California is using 1.3, 1.4 billion gallons of ethanol every year in the form of E10 and a little bit of E85. So moving to E15, if we eventually replace E10 with E15 in the state, it's going to add another 650 million gallons of ethanol demand that is badly needed right now in our domestic marketplace. And, we'd see California at close to 2 billion gallons of ethanol consumption in that scenario where E15 entirely replaces E10. We know that's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to flip a switch and wake up tomorrow morning and every station is selling E15. But we think because of California's unique circumstances, their ability to sell the fuel year round, the extremely high gas prices that we see in that state, and just the overall readiness of the supply chain to accept E15, we think it will be adopted fairly quickly and expand fairly quickly across the state, which is a great story for the ethanol industry. It's we don't often see the rapid development of markets of that size and demand opportunities of that size. So that's why it's such a big deal for us.
Well, how significant a role would you say did RFA play in getting E15 to the finish line in California?
Yeah, to be blunt, this would not have happened without RFA's leadership. The what finally got the ball to the goal line on E15 in California was the legislation. It was AB 30. And people thought we were nuts when a year ago or a year and a half ago we started talking about, hey, let's go to the legislature. We're tired of banging our head against the wall trying to get CARB to move on E15. It's not a priority for them. So let's go to the lawmakers and see if we can get some legislation going that would really compel the agency to finish up this E15 process and get this approval done. And people, like I said, people thought we were crazy. They thought we had no chance of running that play. And not only did we run it, it was incredibly successful. Every vote on the legislation was unanimous, whether that was in committee, whether that was in the Assembly, whether it was in the Senate. We had the support of the governor's office and Governor Newsom. We were also successful in getting increased money in the state budget so CARB can do this rulemaking. We kept hearing from CARB that, hey, we don't have the staff, we don't have the resources to actually do this work, so we're just going, we're not going to do it. So we fixed that for them. We went to the legislature and got money added into the budget to take care of that. They added some staff, and here we are. So I think it's a great example of RFA's leadership and our ability to think strategically. When others were ready to give up and walk away from the years of effort that we've seen in California, we weren't ready to do that. We just found a different way to get it done, and now we're on the precipice of having that fuel available in the state. So it is a real feather for RFA's cap and something that we're all very proud of.
Just to have a unanimous vote is almost it's miraculous. Let's just call it a miracle. That's what it is. But at the same time, what made more sense would be able to get nationwide year-round E15 passed through Congress. Same thing, legislative route instead of going
Yep.
through EPA, which failed. We did have approval at one
That's
point,
right.
but that still hasn't happened, even though a year ago we literally saw defeat snatched from the jaws of victory at the
Yeah.
last minute. And where are we now with nationwide year-round E15?
Yeah, it is interesting that a year ago we probably wouldn't have dreamed of being where we are in California, but we were a centimeter, maybe a millimeter away from having E15 year-round nationwide. And then at the very last minute, in the 11th hour, that legislative package blew up and the E15 provisions were removed. And so we went back to the drawing board. So here we are nearly a year later. We think there still is a good chance we could see that legislation included in something that, a larger package that is moving yet this year, something that must pass before the end of the year. Or certainly, we know at the end of January, the government is going to run out of funding again, and there's going to be either another shutdown or there's going to be another continuing resolution bill to fund the government. And we think that provides another excellent opportunity to move this legislation. Hopefully, we don't have to wait that long. We do think there are going to be some vehicles moving before the end of the year, maybe before Christmas, and we're really going to try to hitch our wagon to something that's moving there. Whether that's a farm assistance package, whether that is, there's a lot of talk about a healthcare package getting done before Christmas time. There's other things, other opportunities we think that could present themselves and give us another chance to get that E15 legislation done. So we remain very focused on that. We know it absolutely has to happen before, February or March of next year. Otherwise, well, number one, we're going to be in an election year. It's going to be tough to get anything done legislatively, but we're going to be moving into the summer months again. And we know there's going to be, a battle over what to do about E15. Will we see emergency waivers again, like we've seen the past several years? The 8 states in the Midwest, or 7 states, I guess, have already resolved this issue, so they're going to move ahead no matter what. But it would be so much better for everyone to remove that uncertainty and that patchwork approach and individual states doing their own thing, and just pass this legislation federally, get it done, get it behind us, and let everybody move on. So that's our focus. That's been our top priority all year, legislatively, and we're going to keep pushing as hard as possible as we get closer to year end here.
Well, we had the nationwide Consumer and Fuel Retailer Choice Act that had been introduced, and you did have the support of the petroleum industry for that. Now, recently that has fallen out. What happened there?
Well, so you're right. The American Petroleum Institute is a group, very powerful group, influential group that we've been working with the last 2 years on the nationwide Consumer and Fuel Retailer Choice Act. They had been supportive. We'd been, shoulder to shoulder advocating for that legislation. In recent months, API has changed its position on that legislation. They say the circumstances have changed, the marketplace has changed, the policy has changed. And so, their position now is, hey, we still support year-round E15. We want to get it done too. But that existing legislation is not something we can support anymore. That's their position. And they think it's going to take a larger package that includes some other provisions addressing other policy needs that they have. And specifically, if you read the news the last week or two, they are talking about reform to the small refinery exemption program. And frankly, that's something that is somewhat attractive to us as well. We think the SRE program has gone way too far, and it's probably time for some reform of that program to get it back more explicitly to what Congress intended. So that's kind of the state of play right now. There are a lot of conversations happening, but I think overall the good news is yes, just because API doesn't support the Fisher-Capito bill anymore, they still support year-round E15. They want to figure out a way to get it done, and we do too. So we're going to keep looking for ways of keeping that coalition together and giving everybody some of what they want, some of what they need to get this over the goal line.
Is the petroleum industry also unhappy with the proposed RVOs?
Well, I think they're unhappy with certain elements of the RVO proposal that we saw, all the way back in June now, from EPA. And I think really one of the sticking points for them was EPA's proposal to cut RIN values in half for imported renewable fuels and renewable fuels produced domestically that are made from imported feedstocks. I think the concern, as we've heard it from the oil industry, is, hey, you've proposed these big volumes, the highest ever RVOs, but you're you're sort of handicapping the ability of the industry to meet those RVOs if you are discouraging or cutting off the ability for imports to help fill those buckets. So, I think that's been the real bone of contention for the oil industry, and we know that they've been advocating with EPA and the White House for changes on how that all works. For our part, we just want to see those RVOs finalized as soon as possible. We want to see any small refinery exemptions fully reallocated. We think that's the only option EPA has, frankly, to ensure that those volumes are met. And then we need to move on, because here we are in November, middle of November, and we still don't have final volumes for 2026, 6 weeks away. And we're probably not going to see those final volumes until, sometime after the new year begins. And so that always causes instability and confusion and creates a lack of continuity and predictability in the marketplace. And so we're really hopeful that EPA can figure out, how they want to finalize all this and get it done and get it out the door.
Well, speaking of unfinished business, where are we at with 45Z tax credit at this point?
Yeah, that's another major piece of unfinished business at the federal level. We are still awaiting rules on the implementation of the 45Z tax credit. Of course, that credit became law on January 1st of this year. And again, we're 11 months into the year. The industry is still operating on preliminary guidance that was issued by the Biden administration all the way back in January. And there's just still a lot of questions that haven't been answered. There's a lot of just confusion about certain aspects of that tax credit program. We know that many in the industry are planning to claim that tax credit for the 2025 tax year. And they're doing the best they can with the information they have to make those claims and file their taxes. But there's a lot of key information and details still missing. And, one piece that's missing is there's still no ability for an ethanol producer to claim any credit or claim any carbon intensity reduction around the feedstock. So if an ethanol producer is buying corn that comes from farmers who are using no-till and other efficient lower carbon farming practices, the ethanol producer today is not able to claim credit for that and likely will not be able to for 2025. And so that whole question around climate smart ag and how that's all going to fit in, we don't have answers to that. We don't know how or whether that's going to be addressed or when it's going to be addressed by Treasury. And we think those are probably all things that we're not going to know until well into 2026.
All right. Well, as we look at the Thanksgiving holiday, what do you think ethanol producers have to be most thankful for this year, 2025?
Well, 2025 was really a good year for the industry, and it's shaping up to be a record year for production. We're on pace to produce about 16.3 billion gallons of ethanol this year. That's up from last year's record. That means we're using a record amount of corn. We think somewhere on the order of 5.7 billion bushels this calendar year. So we know corn growers are thankful for what ethanol has meant for their operations and their bottom line. And I'd say, ethanol producers are thankful for the strong demand that we've seen, particularly in the export market this year. We're expecting record exports, probably 2.1 billion gallons. That means 13% roughly of what we're producing is going to be exported. And that's really been the bright star in the demand picture for ethanol this year, and has really helped keep a floor under margins and prices for ethanol. So that's been incredibly important and something to be thankful for this year. And then of course, the California progress that we're seeing has also been a great win and victory and something to be grateful for this year as well. But, bottom line is it's been a great year for the industry. Um, you know, our producer members continue to expand and debottleneck and adopt new technologies. We've seen the tall grass pipeline in Nebraska switching on, and now they're, shipping CO2. And so, I mean, just this continued evolution of the industry has really played out this year, and it's been exciting to watch. And I think the future is as bright as it's ever been for the U.S. ethanol industry.
Yeah, and we can complain about not getting this nationwide year-round E15, but at the same time, we've seen sales of E15 increase. We've
We
seen the number of stations increase, right?
Yeah, we have. We're actually closing in on 5,000 stations nationwide that are offering E15, and it's happened pretty quietly these last few years. But boy, over this last year and a half, we've seen a real increase in the number of stations offering E15, and what we're seeing with many of these new offerings is stations are just replacing E10 with E15. And so, you pull into some of these stations, and they have E15 available at every dispenser, not just one dispenser over in the corner. It's usually available at every dispenser along with E0. And so when you pull up to those pumps and you see E15 priced 45 or 50 or 70 cents lower than the other option at that pump, which is ethanol-free gasoline, guess which one the consumer is going to choose? And so we are seeing strong demand for E15. We're seeing growth in that marketplace. We're seeing more and more stations coming online. And if we can just get over this hump with the, volatility issue and allow that fuel to be sold year round, we think we're really on the verge of some rapid and expansive growth in E15 in the short term.
Well, and it's amazing how much growth there has been despite that
That's right.
consistent issue that we've had since 2011.
Yeah, even with the barriers in place. And I think that just goes to show what the value proposition is for both retailers and consumers. If they're willing to make the investment and offer that fuel to consumers, even knowing that they might not be able to sell that fuel for 3.5 months each year, I think that just really underscores what a benefit adding E15 to their product slate is, and what a value proposition it is for both their customers and for their businesses.
Thank you very much, Geoff Cooper, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association. Thanks to everyone for listening to this edition of the Ethanol Report, and happy Thanksgiving from the RFA.